Chapter 52 Going Green. Summary. It's time. Izuku watched with a tight chest from the air. After two black-clad sentients flew into the forest, they got a message. All the suits had comms in them, essential for any team out in the field. They just didn't really know how to work them yet. But it seemed Ochako was able to figure out how to deliver a simple message about the attackers. It was the Trellin. Their traffickers had found them, and they'd come for them. The reason they were attacking the town was that they were looking for them. The reason people were getting hurt was because of them. And Izuku could do nothing but watch. Ochako was helping civilians evacuate, ushering them into the forest. Kachan was being Kachan, exploding people left and right. But Izuku could tell he was being extra careful not to catch any buildings on fire. The last thing they needed was the town burning down. Mina was also on the offensive, fending off a group of 4 all on her own. Denki and Mei were exchanging with the airborne ship, the two vessels dancing around each other in the air while fire was exchanged. But there was a problem. Their attackers were skilled. Really skilled. And they were rusty. Besides the 2 Ochako had taken off the battlefield, only one other was out of commission. The other Trellin were still going at it strong. It seemed that there was a reason they'd been around for centuries, despite whatever space government was trying to stop them. Well, he at least hoped the space government would try to get them. What were the chances that they were as corrupt as the Hero Commission back on Earth? Whatever it was, that wasn't a concern right now. Right now, they needed to deal with the Trellin. And Izuku could do nothing. Denki had flying the ship covered right now. Mei was going all at it with the weapon system, and Izuku was just sitting there. Even Fastel and Piper were helping more than he was, pointing out things to the ground team from up in the sky. He just felt so useless. He should have insisted on going down to the ground. Even if he didn't have his quirk, he could help. But Ochako was already down there, and there was no way for him to descend safely while still engaged with the ship. So he was stuck, just watching, being useless. He hated it. Adrenaline was thrumming under his skin, but he couldn't do anything. There wasn't any release for the building pressure. His leg thumped like a jackhammer in his seat, and he was wriggling his fingers, increasingly harsh. Honestly, it was taking some level of self-control not to just fling himself out of the ship and attempt to think of a way to not become a pancake while on the way down. It wasn't taking a lot of self-control, but more than he was comfortable with. The people that had taken them in, treated them with kindness and welcomed them into their tight-knit community, were being hurt because of them. Their home was being raided because of them. They had been dragged out of their homes, children, the elderly, just because the Trellin were looking for them. And he couldn't do anything but sit back and watch while his friends, his family, struggled to stand against them. Mina had blood running down her thigh, limping slightly as she moved, and it was still 4 against 1. Kachan was obviously slowing down, and had been knocked into a building a few minutes ago. He's always been tough, but it looked like a hard hit. Bruised rib at the least. 2 more assailants were out of commission, but he couldn't keep it up for much longer. They were all still so out of practice. This wasn't the way things were supposed to go. They were supposed to get back into it gradually. Figure out how things worked on their own time. But he was naive to think the universe would let them have that. It never works that way for them. thrown into the world of heroes and villains too early, separated from home and thrust into the universe without warning, and now thrust back into fighting too soon for comfort. They'd never had a choice. Things had never gone their way. All they could do was fight back against it. Izuku felt something stirring in his core. He needed to fight back, not just for the town, but for everyone suffering, for everyone they had to leave behind on the traffickers' ship. He would not take this lying down. The world had been against him since he was 4. He'd tried ignoring it. He'd tried accepting it. He'd tried giving up, but he'd never just said, fuck it. It was time to give the universe a big middle finger and say, fuck it. He was going to do everything he can to save everyone he can. And that starts with fighting back, here and now. He's a hero in training, for fuck's sake. Whispers of reassurance echoed around in his mind as he stood up. With each step he took towards the door, something slid further and further into place. It's time, echoed through the whispers. Be a hero. Not just the hero Earth needs, but the one the universe needs. And finally, it clicked into place. The pressure in the air changed first. Everyone in town felt the sudden drop, like the sky was waiting in anticipation of something's arrival. Next came the distinct smell of ozone, wafting in from one specific point, one specific person. When the door of the ship opened, there was no mistaking the crackling green lightning radiating off a small form. And everyone in town stops to stare at the new star being born. A ball of no longer suppressed energy, barely kept together, fighting to unleash its power on everything around it. Then, the form wreathed in lightning takes a step into the open air, and much like a planet in the void, it hangs there, even as the ship flies away. No one was expecting that, and no one was expecting the writhing mass of black tentacles that began to reach out from the body. They grope for purchase, some finding roofs of buildings, others finding nothing but open air. Cold, electric green eyes scan the battlefield. Everyone still frozen by the sheer presence of this thing. It talks not, but actions speak louder than words. The previously idle tentacles still unnaturally in the air, compared to their previous undulating. And in the blink of an eye, the nearest 2 invaders are cocooned in its grasp. The artificial calm is broken. This time, it's the sentients dressed in black that know fear. Most just turn and flee in the face of this eldritch entity. Others don't give in so easily, but they might want to have reconsidered their stances when the figure descends on the town. Moving faster than seems possible, it attacks. Zipping from person to person, it leaves them downed and restrained on the floor. Not even the runners are safe, as the black tentacles snake through the streets to catch the fleeing feet, just to draw them back towards the thing that they fear so greatly, seemingly unaware of their prey's screams of terror. All in all, the event lasted no more than 30 seconds, but it will stick with the inhabitants of the town for the rest of their lives. Izuku was tired. He felt like passing out for 24 hours, but now wasn't exactly the time. Quirk exhaustion would set in pretty soon, but he had enough energy for Black Whip to collect the Trellin and bring them to the destroyed fountain. The only ones unaccounted for were the two Ochako had thrown, and however many were on the airborne ship. Mei had gotten a few good shots in, but it flown off when Izuku entered the fray. Gods, he was so tired. His mind was in a kind of daze, and he didn't notice anyone approaching until Ochako was scooping him up in a hug. "Deku, you got your quirk back! Also, that was terrifying, but in a good way. It was like when you fought Overhaul, but so much more intense." Izuku just smiled weakly at her. He was so glad to have One for All back. He finally felt whole again, now that its familiar presence had settled under his skin. "Are you okay, Deku?" Ochako asked with a frown, eyes inspecting him. "You seem really tired." "Yeah." Izuku laughed weakly. "I think I overused my quirk. A nap sounds really nice now." "You can take a nice, long nap when we get back to the ship. Mei radioed to say that they're landing in a nearby landing bay right now." "They had? Huh." Izuku didn't remember hearing that. He was really out of it, wasn't he? Quirk exhaustion wasn't something he'd had to deal with before. His main concern was with quirk backlash and not breaking his bones. Shoot, he'd have to be extra careful not to break his bones in space. Sure, they had much more advanced and diverse medical care than Earth, but it wasn't as good as Recovery Girl's quirk when it came to healing. Plus, they were kinda trying to avoid anything too documentation heavy because of the Trellin. Today just proved how careful they have to be. And space hospitals almost certainly fell under that category. "Katsuki! Mina!" Ochako cheered. "Come over here! Can you help me secure these guys? When Denki and Mei get here, they can take Deku back to the ship. He's a little tired." Izuku watched with only slightly blurry vision as the others approached. Behind them, he could see other people coming closer, though they left a wide berth around them. It looked like the townsfolk had come to see what was going on, which was fair. Their town did get attacked out of nowhere. Izuku decided that the ground looked comfy enough, rock debris and all. He slumped down, relief filling his bones at the lack of standing. Yes, this was nice. Then, he saw someone in the crowd step forward a bit. Izuku recognized them in passing. Bright green, vaguely reminiscent of a flytrap. What was that?" they asked, voice high-pitched and a little garbly. "What happened? What are you?" Sounds of agreement washed over the crowd. Izuku did not like this. This probably wasn't going to end well. He wanted to leave the town on a good note, them never the wiser to what they are and what their recent past was. But it looked like some explanation was in order. Better to just get the truth out and over with, rather than leave them to speculate. They deserved an answer, after all they'd done for them. Even if he had a bad feeling about where this conversation would go.